This is Dr. Jonathan Hansen. I'm the president of World Ministries International, as well as Eagles Saving Nations. Please check my website out, worldministries.org. That's worldministries.org. We have to have another great awakening. Eagles Saving Nations. Special guest, Roy Kendall. Reverend Kendall, actually, I call him Roy. He goes by Roy. He's a very down-to-earth fellow, but he's a minister of the gospel, and he lives in Jerusalem. He's been there many years now. I'm going to let him tell you how many. But Roy, welcome back to the Warning Program.
Always nice to be with you.
Well, it's good being with you, dear. Roy, we've been friends for a very long time. I think I first met you, frankly, at a Ken Gobb idea exchange years ago.
That. Yes.
Yeah. And, and we just went from there. And so I've been with you in Israel a lot, been in your home. We've been to the Knesset many times together. And frankly, we've gone all through Israel together.
We have, and other countries.
And that's right. That's right. I had you as one of the people at the World Holy Spirit Conference in Korea when I was helping to choose speakers and worshipers, entertainers. And so, in fact, Roy, Dr. Kim is planning to do another one next year.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it all sort of came crashing down during the COVID thing.
As many things did, right.
But I think he's gearing it up to do it again. So anyway, yeah, Roy is a tremendous minister of the gospel in worship and grand piano, and he has played for all sorts of people there in Israel as well as other places around the world. But Roy, why don't you introduce yourself as far as your ministry and what you're doing in Israel?
Okay, we've been there 33 years, to answer your earlier question, and moved there in 1990, just in time for front row seats to the Gulf War.
Wow.
And so we've been through both Gulf Wars and intifadas and uprisings. One thing we've learned, so that now that this one is happening, they're all temporary.
Yes.
And they have a beginning and an ending, and God shows up every time, and people see and know that he is God because of what he does. We're looking forward to the God stories that are already coming out of this and that will continue. But yes, so God called us there 100% by faith. We had co-pastored a church in Vero Beach, Florida for 12 years before that, and thought everything was going wonderful until God just surprised us, and we got invited to move, my wife and I and our two small children at the time, to Jerusalem by faith to work with the International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem, as a volunteer. And when they said they couldn't pay me anything, I said, that can't be God. That's impossible. And God reminded us that he does impossible things, and he's been providing for us for 33 years. We teach and preach and mentor and train people. We lead worship for, as you said, events in the Knesset and other government events, but also conferences that come through Israel. We travel again by faith. God has taken me to, I think the last count was 66 nations. Wow. Most recent being Japan. And we've just completed a Hebrew-Japanese worship CD because Japanese people, we found out, love the Hebrew language and the Jewish Hebrew music, and that 1% Christian believing population of Japan, we believe that through the message of Israel, that's going to change.
Amen. Now, ladies and gentlemen, if you've just tuned in today, Roy, just the other day, was on my program again. That was a great program. We're not going to go over what we covered then, but it was a great program. And so if you did not get a chance to watch it or listen to it, you can go to my website, worldministries.org, worldministries.org. Our television and radio programs are on there 7 days a week, and we're on 7 days a week, trying to reach the multitudes around the world for Jesus Christ. Now, the world is facing the possibility of a nuclear war. I'm sending out an article soon, Roy, titled Mohammed, the Quran, Hamas, and Israel. Now, on October 7, 2023, Hamas infiltrated Israel through the Gaza initially killing over 1,400 Jews, kidnapping over 200 people, raping women, and beheading babies. I'll tell you what, people don't realize how things can, out of nowhere, the world can
Right.
change. And,
Right.
you and I were together earlier this year. We were in the Knesset together, the Knesset
Right.
Christian Allies Caucus. And out of nowhere at that time, none of our leaders there that we talked to, I talked with people for 3 days, world leaders, but nobody thought that this would happen.
Exactly. We just
And
don't know.
out of nowhere, it happened. And, that's the way things are. Nobody thought that, again, at the time, Kuwait would have been invaded by Saddam Hussein, but out of nowhere, he did. And
Exactly.
so we're living in those times that things come out of nowhere, Roy.
That's true. It's exactly right. And people often think, well, that's Israel, especially if you're in America or other countries, that's far away. And, they think that's somebody else's problem, but they don't realize that Israel is taking this on the chin first, because the people that are doing this to Israel fully intend, when they're finished with Israel, to come to America. Israel's called the little Satan, and America is called the big Satan.
Well, that's exactly right. I know Hamas, they've been offered 5 times by the Israeli government a 2-state solution, turned them down every time, because in their charter, they don't want peace. They want to wipe Israel off the face of the earth. And then
That's their
they're
whole
coming
intention.
after America, Roy.
Right. They are, what they've done is they've taken the suppressed Palestinian people issue. There is suppression to a degree. Israel has to, for its own protection, has to clamp down on different segments of the Palestinian, so-called Palestinians. That's another issue, the so-called Palestinian people. Because of so many uprisings, they have to keep a heavy hand to keep things under control. But it has created a suppressed environment for many of those Arab Palestinian people. But so what Hamas did was even convince those people, as well as the world, that what their goal is to correct the suppression problem of the Palestinian people, but that's not it. So people say, well, okay, Hamas did what they did was terrible. They went too far, but it all started because of this suppression that Israel has kept the Palestinian people under, and it finally just erupted to this explosive reaction. And that is the Bible says, "Be not ignorant of Satan's devices." It's a clever cover that they've done, so they make the world think it's because of what Israel did to the Palestinian people that they have risen up, when, as you said, it was in their very charter, their whole purpose. Even if there was no suppression, they are formed entirely to wipe Israel off the map, to get rid of the Jewish people first, and then they move on to the West.
Well, that's exactly right. And, the Bible says truth takes away deception, prayer brings conviction. And there's propaganda trying to brainwash the whole world into believing a lie. And
Right.
as you know, they attacked Hamas civilians purposely.
Yes.
Now, you and I both know different leaders in Israel. I mean, not only in the Knesset, but even generals and things like this. I've interviewed them in their very homes. Israel purposely tries to have the people get out of the way, give
Right.
plenty warning, but the Hamas wants to use those people in Gaza as human shields. They don't want them out of the way. They don't mind them dying, and they just use it for propaganda, Roy.
They actually have even fired on the Palestinian people, that the Gazan people that tried to leave when Israel warned them, and they told them, "Don't leave. You need to be willing to die for Allah." And I've heard stories of even where they have taken people's car keys away from them so that they couldn't get away in the car. They've blockaded the road so that the people can't get out, and so they're holding the people in. And as I think most of the world has heard by now, they actually fire their rockets from underneath hospitals and schools and civilian areas, stockpile them, fire them from there, actually operate from underneath there. so that if Israel tries to attack them, they end up hitting civilians.
No, you're exactly right. And so this is what, again, truth takes away deception. People need to understand the truth. You've lived in Israel now, Jerusalem, 33 years. I see every time I go how Jew, Christian, Muslim live peaceably in Israel, and how, again, the Arabs who have Israeli citizenship, they like it. They don't want to lose it. And you have them also in the Knesset. So, I mean, there is this type of working in unity and love all sides. The people in Israel, the Muslims, so to speak, they don't want to lose their good life right now.
Exactly. They won't say that to a television camera or to a radio microphone or an interview in print, because they can't go on record as saying that, or they will be considered a collaborator, they're called. And those who do usually end up in the desert somewhere. They find them dead somewhere, or tortured, or whatever. But so they don't do that. But if they could tell you, and many of them do tell us and many other people privately, as long as they don't feel their name is going to be connected to it, they tell you, we have much greater freedom, many more rights under Israeli government rule than we do any Sharia law, or actually, they have more democratic rights. And Israel's the only democratic country in the whole Middle East. So they have far more freedom in Israel than they would any other Arab country in the region.
Well, that's totally true. And the people living in Gaza, if they could, they would get rid of Hamas. So they actually don't want Hamas. They're intimidated, they're afraid, and they themselves are persecuted and even killed if they don't back Hamas, in their opinion, enough. If you don't back Islam enough, then they have a right to come after you.
Exactly. What many Westerners don't understand is it's a whole different mindset. Leadership is not based on who has the best ideas. I think I like them better than this person, or I have rights, or they violated my rights. It's based entirely on who has the power, who has the strength. If somebody can rise up that is so powerful, and then they become your ruler, when they tell you to do something, for the most part, you don't say, well, I don't like that. You do it because you're told to do it, and you don't think about it on your own. I might add just one other element that might kind of color the issue, make it a little more understandable. And that is, yes, it's true that in general, the Palestinian people living in Gaza, by the way, they were Egyptian people until Egypt lost, and Israel pushed Egypt back, and they did occupy for a while, as in the rules of war you're entitled to do, until they could work out a solution. And then they turned it over to self-governing, and it was the Palestinian Authority. And then Hamas rose up and showed more power, got them to vote on them. They lied to them, said, we're going to build you nice hospitals, and everything's going to be wonderful, only to turn it into a battleground. But what I was going to say is, the people, the Gazan people, in general, they're waking up to the fact that Hamas is not this utopian ruling people that they thought, because yes, they're being told, you have to stay here, you have to die for the cause. And even they look at the barbaric things that happen. But here's the one thing I wanted to say to color this a little differently. They had been, now because it's gone on for so long, children at the age of 3, 4, and 5 are taught, for fun, you wear a suicide belt, a fake suicide belt. You take a fake rifle, a gun, a fake bayonet, and they practice pretending in their fun and games how to kill a Jew, how to kill an Israeli, the evil people. They're cartoons. I mean, they're not the cartoons. They're children's programs that they watch every day. have a character that looks strikingly like Mickey Mouse, who tells them how evil the Jewish people are and the Israeli people, and has these acted out vignettes of evil religious Jews coming with knives to attack them. So they're taught, it's ingrained in them how terrible and how evil the Israeli Jewish people are. So they already are raised to hate the Israeli people, so that now they're young adults, young men and women. So a lot of them think that Hamas is doing a wonderful thing.
Well, exactly. And that's why I've done quite a few articles in the past over the last 20 years and quite a few programs, but one's coming out again called Mohammed, the Quran, Hamas, and Israel, when people really understand the difference between the Quran and the Bible. One perpetuates love, the other hate. And it goes on and how Mohammed developed the Quran and everything else. When they really understand this, they'll say, my goodness. I mean, as a young child, Muhammad was nursed by a Bedouin woman. And it goes on and on. The child had numerous fits, which made Halima think he was demon possessed. And we could go on this. Muhammad himself thought he was demon possessed. And one of his wives says, no, you're a prophet. But he first prayed toward Jerusalem when he wanted to be the prophet for the Jews. When they rejected him, then he turned his back and prayed toward Mecca. And we could go on and on, Roy.
Right.
And I think this is important that the world understands.
Right, that billions of people would take the word of one man.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what is so sad. I mean, the Quran is a mixture of desert folklore and customs, revelations of Muhammad, elements of teaching of both Judaism and Christianity. And not only have parts of the Quran been lost or deliberately removed, but entire verses and chapters have been added to it. And we could, I've really gone into depth in this.
Right. It's deception. It's backed by the forces of hell. And that's how the wool can be pulled over people's eyes, because the enemy gets in there and finds any opportunity to deceive people. And that's what he does.
And that's basically where we're at in the world today. I mean, they're trying to create this new world order. I mean, it's a real battle, if you want to say heaven and hell, the real God and all of these imposters all over the world, not just Islam, but all of these imposters. I mean, the United Nations led for the most part by the beliefs in other gods, or communism, sheer communism, the hatred of America, the hatred of Israel. I mean, that's why Donald Trump wanted to get us out of the United Nations.
Right. And sadly, I heard that there were 300 college and university professors and leaders who signed the same paper endorsing these protests on university campuses in favor of Hamas.
Yeah, I've got the articles. I've done reports on them. You're right. You are exactly right. And even leading in the protests, the marches, leading in.
Right. These are the ones that are teaching at the university level, the young adults of our nation.
Yeah, we got Islamics, we've got communists, sheer communist. And that's why Americans, when they come out of universities, well, public schools itself, I wrote an article years ago, public schools, universities, enemy number one, because they are teaching them totally contrary to Judeo-Christian values. They're teaching them basically to despise America.
And it was somehow we didn't really know that much was going on. We heard bits and pieces here and there, but it's just been slowly eroding the fabric of the youth of America.
No, you're exactly right. And so the world is facing, like I wrote, even the possibility. I mean, people are afraid that this could extend into, some are even saying about a nuclear war. I mean, there's real concern out there, Roy.
There is, because Iran is so close to having a nuclear weapon ready. Some say even a couple weeks away from that. So there could be the surprise element of either Israel or combined, who knows? I don't know if the U.S. would join in with it. A strike against Iran to cripple their nuclear program. As terrible, people say, well, don't do that because that's the trigger that would set everything off. My friends in the government tell me the problem is it would be a greater catastrophe not to do it.
Yeah. Because
once Iran has that power, they will have no qualms at all about threatening with it. I did ask a friend of mine. In fact, if you haven't interviewed him yet, I'd love to set you up with him. His name is Yoram Ettinger. He does the Ettinger Report. He was the former Israeli ambassador to the UN years ago. And I asked him once because he came to speak to us at the Bridges for Peace International Board meeting one time. And I said, if Israel were to strike Iran and blow up their nuclear program and stop it, I said, would that be like a trigger for World War III that, all the other Arab nations would be upset? And he told me two things. He said, one is people don't realize Iran is not an Arab nation. They're Persian. And
That's right.
They speak Arabic, but people make that assumption. He said, number two is no one in the region wants Iran to have nuclear weapons. So he said, if Israel does that, the rest of the nations, his terminology was, they would quietly applaud and say thank you. Because if Iran gets, the other players in the other nations in the area know that once Iran has that, they will thump their chest, say, we are king of the hill now. We'll tell everybody else what you can and can't do. We will rule the roost of the Middle East.
Well, you're exactly right, Roy. I've heard the same thing. You got Shiite versus Sunni Muslims. And I'll tell you what, you're right. I mean, there are so many Muslim countries that do not want Iran to get those weapons.
Right.
And so
who knows? This may, I kind of secretly suspect, just on my own logic, that it kind of has to happen. And this would be the time, if they're going to do it, if they can do it. I don't even know if they can do it. Maybe there's been some secret negotiations with Israel with these carrier ships there or something, but this would be the time, if they're going to do it, for at least the world to understand, you got to cut the head of the snake off, and the head of the snake is Iran.
No, you're exactly right. Now, you being there so long and knowing the players in Jerusalem, as far as Chris Mitchell and others, and
Joel Rosenberg.
Yeah, what can you tell us now about those people?
Everybody, they're careful to speculate, but not try to predict and say this is what prophecy is about to happen and that's what's about to happen. It looks like it could be this. It looks like it could. Is it Psalm 83? Is it Ezekiel 38? What is it? Other prophecies come into play as a possibility. But basically, in Israel, the general consensus is that the best way to figure out prophecy is after it happens.
Well, what have you heard about the latest statistics as far as Israeli casualties?
Every day now that they haven't even started a full land incursion yet, but they're doing a calculated here and there in different places. They're trying to catch Hamas off guard. But sadly, every day there are a few Israeli soldiers here and there that are being ambushed and killed, and so I haven't heard exact number. It's been a relatively low number of Israeli casualties of war with soldiers, but it hasn't really launched full scale yet. So it's not getting better anytime soon. And they're saying it could be a couple of months at least.
Some of their casualties come because they're trying to prevent the loss of unnecessary human life with
including the hostages.
Yeah, those and even the people that live in Gaza, and they're targeting Hamas. They don't want civilians killed. And that's a
Right.
totally opposite mindset of Hamas.
Right. And world opinion is so fickle that just as the world was so quick to believe that Israel bombed a hospital when it was an errant missile from the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, PIJ, that was trying to join in with Hamas, and about 1 in 5 of their missiles go astray, and that was one of those that, and it didn't even hit the hospital, you know, it hit the parking lot. There were
Exactly.
not 500 casualties, but can you imagine if, no matter how hard they tried, the first hostage that ends up killed as a result of Israel bombing Hamas or attacking them, trying to root them out, the whole world opinion is going to come crashing down on them.
And I can't foresee how that can't happen. There's going to be some collateral
know.
damage. There is no way that this is going to, you know, I used to be a SWAT and a member of SWAT, and there is no way you're going to go through this without some innocent lives taken. No way.
Right, right. So again, though, I keep saying, I believe there will be God's stories come out of this. There will be miraculous rescues and surrenders or whatever, or things that God himself did out of the hands of the Israelis, that only there's no other explanation but God. And the world, the Bible says all of these things that happen in Israel, that the world will see and know that he is God.
That's exactly right. It's all going to point to a living God and eventually to the Messiah.
Right.
Now, Roy,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
We have some, give us some closing comments. We got another minute.
Okay. I just said that nobody is trying to predict which prophecies are coming true, but I have to at least say, you know, the Ezekiel prophecies, chapter 35, 36, 37, 38, are all happening chronologically, and all of them have happened, and through Ezekiel 37, with Israel becoming a nation again, and all the things being fulfilled exactly like, along with Amos and so many other prophecies. But it's like God hit the pause button after 37, and people should at least take a look at Ezekiel 38 and see that it's not only these players, but it looks like Russia's going to come down and try to team up with Turkey. That's a whole other thing. I just want to say that it could happen because, like you said, anything could happen tomorrow. We don't know. But I don't mean that even to scare people.
No.
Because when these things happen, I love those chapters in Ezekiel. About every other line, it says, then you'll know I am God. Then you'll know the Lord did it. Then you'll know, the world will see, the world will know. And that's what I'm excited about, that through all of this, we will have actually better ways to present the gospel, because we'll say, did you see what happened exactly like the Bible said? Then we will know he is God.
And miracles are continuing to happen, Roy.
They at a rapid pace.
At a rapid pace. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching, listening, the Warning Program. Special guest, Roy Kendall. He's lived in Jerusalem for 33 years. A great man of God, missionary over there. Sings beautifully, has many albums. And I'll tell you what, we've been friends for a long time. And Roy, give your website real quick.
SOWIJ.com. The letters stand for School of Worship in Jerusalem, but it's SOWIJ.com.
God bless you, ladies and gentlemen. Worldministries.org, worldministries.org. Give us your best offering so we can continue on this local television radio station. We can go national. Truth takes away deception. Prayer brings conviction. Thank you, Roy.
God bless you. Thank you.
Shalom.
Shalom.